Welcome back, everyone. We're doing a deep dive on Atomic Habits by James Clear today.
Okay.
We're going to be focusing on practical stuff you can use right away.
Sounds good.
So, Clear's approach is not about, like, willpower, really.
No.
It's about optimizing the systems you're already using.
Right. So instead of trying to make huge changes all at once,
Yeah.
he focuses on tiny improvements over time.
Kind of like small steps up a mountain,
Yeah, exactly like that.
instead of trying to jump to the top in one go.
He calls this idea the plateau of latent potential.
Okay.
It shows how tiny changes can add up over time.
And they, like, build up.
Yeah, and you might feel like you're not making progress for a while,
Right.
but then suddenly you have this breakthrough.
Interesting. So consistency is key.
Absolutely. Patience and consistency are the most important things.
Got it.
Another key concept is aligning your habits with your identity.
Okay.
If you want to be a writer,
Okay.
you need to write every day,
Every day.
even if it's just a little bit.
So it reinforces that identity.
Yeah, it's like casting votes. Each action you take is a vote for the person you want to become.
So instead of just wishing for it, you're actually doing it.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense.
Now let's get into the 4 stages of habit formation.
Okay.
Cue,
Uh-huh.
craving response, and reward.
Okay.
A good example is touching a hot stove.
Oh.
The heat is the cue.
Okay.
The craving is to avoid pain.
Right.
The response is you pulling your hand away.
Michael.
And the reward is the relief of not being burned.
So it's a cycle.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That makes sense.
And it applies to all habits.
Oh, okay.
The cue triggers a prediction in the brain,
Uh-huh.
leading to a craving which makes you respond.
Okay.
And then the reward reinforces the whole cycle,
Interesting.
making you more likely to do it again.
So if one of those stages is missing,
Uh-huh.
it's less likely to become a habit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now let's make this practical.
Okay.
Clear suggests starting with a habit scorecard.
What's that?
It helps you be more aware of your current habits,
Okay.
both the good and bad.
So like an inventory
Yeah,
to see where you're at.
exactly. You can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Right. That makes sense.
Once you know your habits,
Then what?
you can use implementation intentions to change them.
Okay.
This means having a precise plan
For what?
for when and where you'll do the habit.
So instead of just saying, I'll exercise more,
Right.
you'd say, I'll run for 30 minutes at 7 a.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the park.
Exactly.
So being specific.
Yes. A British study showed this was way more effective.
Than just relying on motivation.
Or just tracking your progress.
Interesting.
It makes it easier for your brain to follow through.
I see.
Clear also talks about habit stacking,
All right.
which is linking a new habit to an existing one.
So like after I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're using the neural pathways of the existing habit
Interesting.
to make it easier to add the new one.
Kind of like a mental shortcut.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the first law of behavior change.
All right.
Make it obvious.
Okay.
Remember the 4 stages.
Yes.
The cue is what starts everything.
Right.
So to make a habit stick,
Yeah.
you need to make the cue clear and obvious.
So like if I wanted to drink more water,
Uh-huh.
I'd put a full water bottle on my desk where I can see it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Design your environment.
Yeah.
So the cues for good habits are prominent,
Uh-huh.
and the cues for bad habits are hidden.
So to reduce social media use,
Yeah.
I could put my phone in a drawer
You could.
or turn off notifications.
Exactly.
So I'm not constantly being tempted.
It's about making good habits easier
Yeah.
and bad habits harder.
Just by changing your environment.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
It's not just about willpower.
Right.
It's about making your surroundings work for you.
Okay. Awesome.
Now, the second law is make it attractive.
Okay. So how do we make a habit more appealing?
It's all about dopamine, the neurotransmitter that makes us feel good.
So our brain's reward system,
Exactly. Habits that release dopamine are more likely to stick.
because they feel good,
Right. That's why junk food, social media, and addictive substances are so habit-forming.
they all trigger that dopamine rush.
Exactly.
So how can we use this to our advantage?
One technique is called temptation bundling.
Okay.
You pair an activity you want to do
Uh-huh.
with something you need to do.
Like watching my favorite TV show while on the treadmill.
Exactly. You're linking pleasure with something less enjoyable.
But I still have to do it.
Right. It makes the desired behavior more attractive.
Because you're looking forward to the reward.
Exactly.
That's smart.
Now let's talk about social influence.
Okay. How does that affect our habits?
We're heavily influenced by the people around us.
Yeah.
We tend to adopt the habits of our social circles.
So if all my friends are into fitness,
Uh-huh.
I'm more likely to work out too.
Exactly. Think of the Polgar sisters.
Okay.
They all became chess prodigies.
Wow.
Partly because their parents created a chess-centric environment.
So their environment supported their growth.
Exactly. They lived and breathed chess.
That's amazing.
Even simple things are affected by social pressure.
Really?
Look at Solomon Ash's conformity experiment.
Right?
People gave obviously wrong answers just to fit in.
Wow.
It shows how powerful social approval can be.
So we need to be mindful of our social circles.
Yes. Choose your influences carefully.
Because they can have a big impact.
Whether we realize it or not. So we've talked about making habits obvious and attractive.
Right.
Now let's move on to the third law.
Okay.
Make it easy.
So how do we do that?
By reducing friction.
Friction.
The things that make it hard to do something,
Okay.
the easier it is to do something, the more likely you are to do it.
That makes sense.
So if you want to exercise in the morning,
Yeah.
lay out your workout clothes the night before.
So ready to go.
Exactly. You remove the obstacle.
The little things that trip us up.
Right.
I like that.
Clear also talks about optimizing your environment.
We talked about that with making cues obvious.
Yeah, but it applies here too.
So how?
You shape your surroundings to support your habits.
Okay.
If you want to read more, keep a book on your bedside table.
Okay.
If you want to eat healthier,
Mm-hmm.
stock your fridge with fruits and vegetables.
So make the good choice the easy choice.
Exactly. Another important idea is the 2-minute rule.
What's that?
You scale down a habit
Okay.
to something you can do in 2 minutes or less.
So instead of running 5 miles,
Right.
I just put on my running shoes.
Exactly. It's about making starting easy.
Because once you start,
Yeah.
you're more likely to keep going,
It overcomes that initial inertia.
like getting the ball rolling.
Exactly.
And then you build momentum.
You can also use automation to your advantage,
What do you mean?
leverage technology or systems to
Yeah.
make good habits automatic.
Like setting up automatic bill payments
Yes.
so I don't miss a deadline.
Or using a meal delivery service.
It make healthy eating easier.
Exactly.
I see.
It frees up mental energy.
Because you don't have to think about it.
Right, you're outsourcing the effort.
That's cool.
Now, we've talked about making good habits easy,
Right.
but what about bad habits?
How do we make those harder?
By increasing friction,
Okay.
make them less appealing.
So like hiding the junk food.
Yeah. Or think about writer Victor Hugo.
Okay.
He locked away his clothes.
His clothes.
Yeah, to force himself to focus on writing.
Wow, that's dedication.
It's about creating barriers.
To those unwanted actions.
Exactly.
Today we might use website blockers.
To limit social media use.
Right.
Or ask a friend to change our Netflix password.
To prevent binge watching.
So we're disrupting those automatic patterns.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's move on to the fourth law.
Right.
Make it satisfying.
Okay. Why is that important?
Our brains are wired to seek pleasure
Mm-hmm.
and avoid pain.
So we repeat actions that feel good.
Exactly.
But what about habits that are good for us in the long run?
Like
exercising or saving money.
right.
Those don't always feel good in the moment.
That's the challenge.
Our brains want instant gratification.
It's a leftover from our ancestors.
Who needed to survive in the moment.
Exactly.
So how do we bridge that gap?
You can try to make the desired behavior itself enjoyable,
Okay.
like listening to music while working out.
So I'm adding some fun to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another tool is habit tracking.
Habit tracking.
Yeah. It makes the habit more satisfying.
Ow.
It provides visual evidence of your progress.
So I can see how far I've come.
Right. And that can be very motivating.
That's like proof that I'm doing it.
Exactly. It taps into our desire for achievement.
I like that.
Now let's talk about accountability.
Okay.
It can be a powerful motivator.
How so?
When we share our goals with others,
Yeah.
we're more likely to follow through.
Because we don't want to let them down.
Exactly. It's like having a support system.
Yeah.
Clear suggests creating a habit contract.
What's that?
It's a formal agreement,
About my goals.
and the consequences of not meeting them,
Right.
you sign it with an accountability partner.
So it's like a public commitment.
Exactly.
And it adds some pressure.
Brian Harris used this for weight loss.
Oh, really?
He had financial penalties
Wow.
and even had to wear a rival team's hat.
If he didn't meet his goals,
Right.
that's a great idea.
It makes the cost of inaction real.
I see.
Now it's important to find the right habits for you.
So it's not one size fits all?
No. Clear talks about personality and genetics.
Okay.
They influence what works best for us.
So some people are naturally early risers.
And some are night owls.
Right.
It's about finding what fits your natural tendencies.
So experiment and see what sticks.
Exactly. Clear calls this the explore-exploit trade-off.
Okay.
Explore different options early on,
Uh-huh.
then exploit what works best for you.
So like trying different workout routines
Yeah.
or productivity techniques.
Exactly. Once you know what works,
You focus on that.
right, build habits that align with your strengths.
So it's personalized.
Exactly.
I like that.
Clear also talks about creating your own game.
What does that mean?
It means finding unique combinations of skills
Okay.
or interests that set you apart.
So not just following the traditional paths.
Exactly.
Sure.
Think of Scott Adams.
Who's that?
He created the Dilbert comic strip.
Oh, yeah, I know Gilbert.
He combined drawing humor and business.
To create something unique.
And successful.
So find your niche.
And leverage your strengths.
To make your own path.
Exactly.
Okay, that's inspiring.
Now what happens when motivation fades?
That's a good question.
It happens to everyone.
So how do we stay consistent,
Clear says it's about showing up.
even when you don't feel like it?
Exactly.
That's tough.
An Olympic coach once said,
Okay.
the difference between successful people and everyone else is not talent. It's the ability to show up even when you don't feel like it.
So discipline over motivation.
Exactly.
Yes.
One way to stay engaged is with variable rewards.
What are those?
Unexpected rewards.
Okay.
That adds surprise and novelty.
So like giving myself a small treat
You could.
after completing a task.
Right.
I see.
Think about video games.
Oh.
They use variable rewards to keep us hooked.
With new challenges and levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clear also talks about the Goldilocks zone for challenge.
What's that?
Finding the right level of difficulty.
Yeah.
Not too easy, not too hard.
So I'm challenged, but not overwhelmed.
Exactly.
The sweet spot.
It keeps you motivated and engaged.
I see.
It's like that 50-50 split he talks about.
A balance of success and failure.
Right. It keeps the desire and satisfaction in play.
So we've talked about making habits easy and satisfying and finding the right level of challenge.
Right.
But how do we keep those habits going over the long term?
That's where reflection comes in.
Reflection.
Yeah, it's about reviewing your progress
Okay.
and adjusting your approach as needed.
So it's not just setting it and forgetting it.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Think of it like steering a ship.
Okay.
You need to make little adjustments to stay on course.
So how do we make reflection more effective?
You can schedule dedicated time for it.
Okay.
Like a weekly review or a monthly check-in.
So putting it in my calendar
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also helpful to keep a journal.
to track my progress.
Yes. And note any challenges you face.
So I can brainstorm solutions.
Exactly. That makes sense. Clear talks about the LA Lakers.
Yeah.
They used a career best effort program.
What was that?
They tracked specific stats
Yep.
and reviewed them regularly.
So they could see where to improve.
Exactly.
It's about using data to get better.
Now let's talk about happiness.
Okay.
It's something we all want.
But it can be hard to find.
Clear says it's not a fixed state.
Okay.
It's a byproduct of living in alignment with our values.
So it's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
I like
He quotes Viktor Frankl,
Okay.
who said,
Yeah.
happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue.
So it comes from living a fulfilling life.
Exactly.
If we build habits that support our values,
Uh-huh.
then happiness will naturally follow.
That's the idea.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, a key concept here is desire and satisfaction.
How do those relate to habits?
Desire initiates action,
Okay.
and pleasure sustains it.
So we need both to build lasting habits.
Exactly. We're driven by a desire for change,
Right.
but it's satisfaction that keeps us going.
So we need the drive to start
Yes.
and the reward to continue.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Remember, feeling motivated leads to action,
Uh-huh.
but feeling successful leads to repetition.
That's a good point.
So to wrap things up,
Okay,
remember the 4 laws of behavior change.
let's review them.
Make it obvious,
Uh-huh.
make it attractive,
Uh-huh.
make it easy,
Uh-huh.
make it satisfying.
We can use these for anything we want to change.
Absolutely.
Even small changes can make a big difference.
As long as they're consistent.
So don't underestimate the power of small steps.
And keep experimenting to find what works for you.
Great advice.
Thanks.
So as we end this deep dive, think about one habit you want to build or break.
Okay.
How can you use one thing you learned today to make progress?
Small steps lead to big changes.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
That's a good one.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into atomic habits.
It was fun.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.